Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. So I've actually already recorded all of Mondays with Mr. Happy when I'm recording this specific intro, but I realized in that intro that I had something that I was trying to avoid saying, and that I could have just said anyway. So I'll probably redo this intro and a redone outro, because I actually, by this point, will have released a video with my early pre-release review of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square Enix did provide a review copy, and I have finished the game. Now, I won't be talking about any of the spoilers or anything like that here. You don't have to worry about that. And in the video, I actually need to go back and re-render it. The only spoiler that's in there in regards to cutscenes is the opening, the intro, the opening cutscene, which I use for a certain scene. So I just wanted to fix that and say that I have played it. I will still be streaming it when it comes out this coming week. And I won't say anything else because I have other things that I want to say. I'm sure people are going to be asking me about it all week, but that's all you're going to get out of me, and I just wanted to fix that in the intro. On top of that, there's a couple of other things that I said in the original intro that I want to reiterate here. Of course, we got to thank our sponsors for the show. Now, we, of course, always thank our patrons of darkness, who I've left a bunch of names on there because there are people who have canceled because of what's going on in the world right now. And you know what? For all the support that those people have given me over the time, during a time like this, I'm not going to take their name off the list. Yeah, I don't feel like they deserve that. They deserve to stay on it because they're only looking out for themselves. They're taking my advice, and I'm glad that they're doing it. Of course, there are people who are still supporting on that list as well, and you're staying on that list for obvious reasons. We also have our patrons of darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni, who have gone above and beyond with their support. They're always there. They're always looking good. Same screenshots, but always good. Well, there was one other thing I can't remember that I mentioned in the initial intro. Oh, and Steel Series. So I don't really talk about my new discount code for Steel Series very much, but I got a new discount code for them. Instead of 10%, it's now 12%. That's listed under pretty much every video I release on the channel. I was kind of hesitant to even mention it because right now, again, most people are in financial situations where you're thinking about eating, shelter, survival, you know, maybe having to file for unemployment. There's so many crazy things going on that being like, hey, I have a 12% discount code for a headset right now, it kind of feels out of taste. But for anyone who is still making purchases like that right now, I have a 12% discount code. Save as much money as you can given the current circumstance. And I guess with that little ad read, the show is technically sponsored by Steel Series. So I think that's all I needed to say in the original. I'll have some updates, some relic related stuff coming out this week, as we know we're getting 5.25, which means we'll be getting the actual relic. We'll be getting the EX trial for that. I already mentioned the 7 remake thing, which will already be out by the time this releases. And then on top of that, we'll have a bunch of 7 remake related guides over the weekend. I'll do my best to avoid spoilers in any of them. Very, very basic thumbnails that with just some text. That's what we're going to be aiming for. And maybe I change that later, like after people have had a bit of time with it. But I totally respect and understand a lot of people, even people who played the original, want to avoid spoilers. We will do one super spoiler video where we can all nerd out. Those of us who have played it can just nerd out over the events and talk about it. So we will do one of those. So be on the lookout for that, and don't click it if you don't want to be spoiled. But on that note, let's actually start the Q&A. From this point on, I don't think I mention anything 7 Remake related until the outro, which I'm going to redo right after I redo this intro. So enjoy it, and hopefully I don't sound like an idiot because I was still trying to not say that I had the early review copy and that I was going to be releasing that early review. So let's get started. All right, question number 1, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps, longtime viewer, second-time asker. Would you be okay with no new jobs or races in the next expansion, but in exchange having those resources put into refinement of jobs and content? Well, I have an answer for this, but I guess I'll read the rest. With the abundance of jobs, feel like they should take care not only balance, but to give them a sense of care to keep jobs fresh and interesting. That's something that is irrelevant of whether or not they release new jobs. That's something they are doing every expansion, whether or not it actually jives with the current player base, either the people currently playing the job or people looking to try the job for the first time. Is a completely, it's essentially a response to whatever they do. But they're doing that every expansion regardless of whether or not there's new jobs. There can only predict so much how players are going to react to something in particular, and then once the feedback's been provided, they can make adjustments, determine a timetable. But that's completely irrelevant of whether or not there's jobs or races. There aren't the same assets that go into it. When you're making a new job, a lot of the work goes into stuff like animation work, stuff like the actual designs, how the armor fits. It's more armor design on top of that, how the armor fits that, how the armor fits during certain animations, new races, obviously, all of that tenfold, because you need to consider how every single outfit fits on an individual character. And while yes, there are skills, new skills, animations, updates to old animations, stuff like that, the amount of work that goes into any one of those individual things is not one of the things that's necessarily preventing them from doing that more with other jobs, because it's just as important to do that with the other jobs as it is to do them with the old ones. When people don't like a job and they don't like updates to it, it's not because they didn't have enough time or resources to do more. It's just that's what they decided their updates were going to be, and whether or not it was well received by the community. So these things, there's really like no direct answer to this, because those two things shouldn't be overlapping, because it doesn't matter how much extra care or time they put into it, it could still not land with the player base when it actually comes out. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope you're doing well and staying safe indoors. Don't have much else to do, my friend. So I've got my wife playing 14. I'm actually going to move this down slightly, because I feel like it normally covers a little bit of my face, because I'm like very centered and then I slouch a little bit, you know. So I've got my wife playing Final Fantasy 14 for the past year now. She's loving it. It's gotten to the point where she's been pressuring me to get on to play some more with her instead of asking her to play. Lately, she's been wanting to get into harder rating scenes. She's not very good, and I've taken her through the latest normal mode, and she's getting better. I still have to walk her through most things. That's fine. Play side by side. My worry is she's wanting to try Savage Raids next, and I have a feeling I know what the rest of the question is. And I won't be able to do my steps in the fight and focus on her and what she needs doing, let alone tell her split seconds where to move and whatnot. No, my wife and I just fear dumping her into that might turn her off from the game. We had a question like this a few weeks ago, so much so that halfway through reading this, I thought you were asking the same question. Like you were the same person asking the same question. What's a good starting point? I mean, honestly, EX trials are always the starting point. And if it's rough there and there's like an unwillingness to practice and improve at all, then it's a sign not to take a step into Savage. I will say that because more people step into EX, there's a little bit less of an expectation on people in the Party Finder for that. There's absolutely still toxicity when people don't perform, but it's more common that people just peace out and just like leave and be like, this sucks, I'm out. But it has to start with the EX trials. She has to start there. I wouldn't jump right into Savage without doing that first. So, and you have suggested that, so you're well aware. You know exactly where to go. You're someone who's played for a while, and you know, you checked with me, but I think you knew. I think you knew what the answer was going to be. It's just that your fears were like, maybe there's something I'm not thinking of, because you know I don't want my wife to suddenly hate this all that much. Yeah, EX trials. I mean, where else can you really go if you want to start going into content that's of a higher difficulty? That's the next step. All right, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Back again with another question. Still haven't been able to clear chaos on Defu. Feels bad, man. You'll get it. I hope you and yours are keeping well this week, and I hope to you and yours as well. In one of your videos I watched earlier, you mentioned how it was difficult to do certain things with zones or something due to the code being written over the old 1.x series. Well, it's not even just zones. It's very particular functions that are like laid out at the base of the game. One of them being the class system. It's inextricably tied to the lore, but it's also inextricably tied to the actual like character progression. So removing it is a substantial feat. There's a bunch of things that are still affected to this day by Realm Reborn having to be rushed in under 3 years and still having to borrow some of the code from the broken 1.x series. And let's see. Whilst yes, we all love 14 in its current state, imagine what they could do with a new MMO from the ground up. They could fuck it up again. That's what I know everyone's like super confident, but they could also fuck it up again. You know, just because lesson learned, but not necessarily always in practice. Might be feasible to see a brand new FFMO in the next 5 years. No. They'd have to already be working on it. A lot of people think that Yoshida's third project that's under the third development division might be an MMO. I'm less in that boat and more in the boat that he's working on Final Fantasy 16. I think that's just what I want deep down in my soul to be the truth. But of course it's possible. No, because they've been asked this question before and they've said as long as we have the means to update Final Fantasy 14, there's not really much a reason to make a third Final Fantasy MMO. They still run and update Final Fantasy 11. They're currently running and updating Final Fantasy 14. We've seen what a game with a loyal player base can survive and live through, both in 1.0 and World of Warcraft's lesser well-received expansions, and even other MMOs that have had their ups and downs that, you know, we may not mention often, but, you know, have their due respects that, you know, that they're owed. So no, I don't think so, especially not in the next 5 years. They literally have to start developing it now or already be in the works for that to happen, and I don't think that's going to be the case. Besides, they also run Dragon Quest X over in Japan, so it's too many MMOs in one company, and they've also commented on that. So no, because the only way is if they straight up abandon Final Fantasy 14. It's the only way I see that they do another MMO, and maybe that day comes at some point. Because them abandoning 11 still wouldn't affect that. It would have to be abandoning 14 that gave them the decision to make a brand new MMO. Now, do they at some point maybe do an engine overhaul? It's a possibility, but it would severely impact the workflow, as if that isn't already happening right now. And so we'd probably see a much slower pace of content for a long time while they got everything in place and caught everyone up to speed on that. God, my mustache has grown just enough to where it pokes me, like, right here on the underside of my nose. So you see me doing this? Because I'm trying to, like, flatten the hairs down. So it stops poking me in the nose. Now it's poking me in the upper lip. I got those, like, tarantula mustache. Anyway, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Apps, you doing alright? I'm doing alright. I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. My question is about breaking it off with a static. Bro, I'm not really good with relationship advice. You should know. I'm a good listener, but a talker. I talk a lot, but it's not always wisdom. No, in the past you've said you feel things aren't working out, just not to be afraid to look for new static. Myself and another member are starting to feel that way. Just leave. Don't drag this out. This is exactly like a normal relationship. Just be out. Just be like, listen, I don't jive. It's like our goals aren't aligned. I need a static that matches what I want out of this game. Done. Like, you can't be like, it's an MMO, it's an online game, unless these people are like deep like longtime friends and like you've had moments together and you're really afraid of tarnishing the friendship. Just be out. And if they're good friends, then they fucking wouldn't even complain anyway. Instead of just whining that, oh, you don't want to play with us anymore. No, fuck that. Friends want their friends to succeed. Want them to chase their dreams. So if these are your real friends, they'll let you chase your dreams of being in a different stack. So yeah, no, just literally be like, I feel like I need a change of speed or a change of pace, or I want to find a group that's more the speed that I want to progress, whether that be faster or slower. Who knows? Right before this one, someone's like, you need to get some color on your skin. I'm not allowed to go outside. You understand? If I go outside and I'm not going to like to get food or essential supplies, I will be written a ticket and fined like $1,000. You understand? I don't have a fucking option. I gotta do what I gotta do. Not like it would have changed anything. I still would have been pale as hell. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey apps, Flynn here. Once again, to bring you questions that you would like to answer on Sunday, so you can enjoy a Monday. Oh. Yeah, okay, that took me, my brain didn't process that. Now I got it. We all know that we'll be getting 4.25 on the 7th of April. If you had to choose when to release it, when would you have? But I mean, that's not really like an answerable question. When I choose to, dude, the next day, as soon as I'm done with the content that is previously done. If I could choose any release date for anything, it would be the day after I'm done with the last thing. So that's unrealistic. I'm one of those people that's literally impossible to please for any like long period of time, because I'm a consumer, like a mass consumer. I like to sit down and binge something for 16 hours when it comes out. And it's why I get through some long games pretty freaking fast when I'm like really, really diving into them. So, I mean, March 31st would have been best. I would have taken it alongside P5R because I already knew there was no chance of me finishing P5R. I'd have taken April 14th because I'll probably be done with Final Fantasy VII Remake by the 14th. I don't expect it to take me 4 or 5 days, 16 hours a day to get through that game. It's not a realistic expectation for me. So the 7th is actually the worst day, technically, because that's only a few days before 7 Remake. And we still don't really know enough about the relic to make a judgment. I think that we'll be able to finish our first relic in like 3 or 4 hours, because they've said that it's not like a grind fest for this first one. It's like story, finish the story, get your relic, and then there's an EX trial. Honestly, I'm more concerned with how much time I have to make the guide for the EX trial, or even for the weapon overall. I don't know, people shouldn't need a guide for the base weapon, but covering what will be the future of the relic weapon in that video is something I plan on doing. So Yeah, literally any day but the 7th, but it doesn't matter, because if you gave me a choice, it would have been like long time ago. Now we got a hashtag 2 questions and a hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I almost said Mondays with Mr. Happy because I looked away. Hi Haps, hope you're still doing fine with quarantine. Doing alright. Haven't asked in a while, so I got a 14 related question and a life question. First question regarding weakness. I keep hearing from people that weakness affects how much damage you take. It does not. And it also never did. It used to... Yeah, no, it never did. It used to affect your survivability because you used to lose vitality, which is what determines what your max health is. It hasn't been that way in quite some time. So, no, it doesn't affect how much damage you take. And 2, anything you're going to miss out on due to COVID-19. I mean, we're still afraid we're not going to have FanFest. Like, all I care about during COVID-19 is people are healthy and safe. Obviously, I don't want anyone to fall into dire financial straits, and I'm constantly thinking about how the lives of the people I know, can or is being affected, whether it be directly because they've contracted COVID-19 or because their lives have changed, their workplaces are no longer able to, sustain, and they have to file for unemployment. Like, I'm genuinely worried about a lot of people that I know, both back home and in, something more in my current life. But I'm not worried about missing something because of COVID-19. Like, so missing something is like it probably not a necessity that I would have missed. And right now, the only thing that really matters is necessity. Having a place, having shelter to be safe. Being sure that you can your future's not being annihilated by any of this stuff that could be affecting investments or anything like that. I'm thinking very practically. Having water and food in the house, making sure I'm taking care of my cat, giving him plenty of attention, making sure that he doesn't get sick or anything because, the vet is an essential service. But last thing I want to do is subject both myself and my animal to like a public area, even if COVID-19, I think it's been reported in like 1 case of a dog. That's the last place I checked. But yeah, I have concerns about the lives of the people that I'm connected to and their well-being and nothing else. I don't care about this. If they said they're canceling FanFest, I'd be like, that sucks, but you know what? Fine, we do a live stream for it. They do a live stream and we do a live stream celebrating that. Everyone gets together. That's where we go to talk about FanFest. Fine, we've got it fixed. We're in the digital age. We can handle stuff like that. So no, there's nothing I'm afraid of missing out COVID-19. I just want people to be healthy and safe. Oh, I think I know what this is going to be like based on the first question. Happy Monday, Mr. Game Designer Happy. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Great answer last week. Just want to mention that even though I think they're kind of generic in terms of theme, 2.0 are my favorite areas in the game. This week's question, Square Enix wants to expand the world and profitability of 14, making another game in the same world. After a wildly successful expansion, you are of course in charge and have free reign. What do you do? I'm not going to lie. A 16-bit turn-based RPG a la Final Fantasy VI or something more ATB related that covers the events of 2.0. And yeah, you could go past that, but straight up, I would take that. Honestly, if they put that in the toy box in Final Fantasy 14 and charged like $10 for it, I'd buy it. I would replay 2.0, like especially after they remake it for 5.3. Yeah, 100%. I'm not really like a big fan of expanding an MMO via other media. Sometimes there's like supporting media that's like available free in some places, and that's a little okay. Like we get those like Tales from the Shadowbringers, Tales from the Stormblood, like all those kind of things during the anniversaries. They released a book that was a compilation of them with a few new pieces in there. We get the Encyclopedia Eorzea, which has a lot of information that's in the game, but also provides some more background information. It's also written from the perspective of an Eorzean scholar, so it's not just like we're making a book for you. It's supposed to be a book that's for your knowledge of the game and the game world and its lore, made by people and their interpretation of it in game, which means there can sometimes be information that's outdated, inaccurate, and it changes based on time and actual understanding and perspective. But even then, it's still like, yeah, it's cool, it's fun, I'm going to buy it. But I kind of like to keep MMO media within the MMO as much as possible. So outside of something that retells the events in a different format, I guess I wouldn't really go in many other directions than that. This one looks like a quick one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. When do you think, hello to you too, by the way, when do you think they'll be adding Ruby Weapon and Hades Dragons available for totems? There's always someone who has has 100 Hades totems. It's almost always 2 patches later. So like Hades was in 5.1, so 5.3 buy the mount with the totems. Ruby is 5.2, so probably 5.4 you'll buy with totems. That's generally how it goes. It changes for the ones that like the whichever primal comes out in the 0.5 patch. I think that's usually by like the 0.8, like 5.58, I think is when it becomes purchasable, if not by 6.0. But it's usually 2 major patches. That's what you're looking for availability there. All right, next one. Hello to you too, by the way, Mr. H. Oh, he's saying hello from last week, finally. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Aloha to aloha. Yeah, he's not in here right now. Thank goodness. He's been annoying the last couple days. None of the pizza places are open. I can get pizza. I can still get pizza. Now I want pizza. Now I'm going to get pizza. Maybe. I don't want to spend money right now. Question for you is, what do you think may contain 7 spoilers? Let me read it real quick. Oh, it's about the weapon trial series. Yeah, that's not even... I don't care. This isn't going in the spoiler section. This is literally just about the trial series. And I think I've even answered this question on Mondays with Mr. Happy already. So usually when we have a trial series, it usually has 3 fights in it. So we have the Warring Triad, 3 of the 4 Lords, but there were 4 weapons in the original 7 that we know of: Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, and Diamond. Will we fight these outside the trial series? Maybe. Do you think? Where's your money going? So to expand upon how many we normally get in a trial series, it's normally that we get 1 trial, then like a main scenario plus EX version of main scenario trial, the next patch, and then we get trial number 2 and trial number 3 of the trial series. I think they're gonna stick to that, but they're already showcasing that maybe they won't. They've dropped the name of who the next person we're going to fight is, which of the next weapons we're going to fight already, and it's not the one people expected, because people expect us to fight Ruby, Emerald, and Diamond, but they named Sapphire. So I think a solo instance in 5.3 that covers us taking care of the Sapphire weapon is maybe somewhat in line. Maybe we're testing a new weapon that Gaius has come up with, a way to combat these. Maybe something along those lines is entirely possible, but I straight up won't be surprised if we get 4. There's also the possibility that we fight 2 of them at once. The only reason I don't think that is because I think we're going to have 2 pilots for the Diamond weapon. And with the 5 total, that still makes for 4 encounters. I think there's a decent chance we fight all 4 of them, because we're already getting a bonus EX trial through the Relic series in 5.2. So maybe they do a bonus one in 5.3. And maybe it drops accessories instead of weapons, but then people will want glamour weapons, so that might be a little bit of a mistake. We'll see. I'm not ruling it out, but I think the most likely scenario is that we'll fight Ruby, Emerald, and Diamond like normal encounters, and Sapphire will be like a solo trial or a dungeon or something. Most likely a solo trial. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays question. Also, hello. Seeing a Seinfeld fan. Or you're just copying me. Based on your answer for the die question, I wonder, do you think that making a color wheel system that you can pull up via the menu to the die color would be a workaround? Also, the wheel itself is charges that you need to replenish with dies. So here's the thing. Anything is technically possible. How much effort it takes to incorporate, and if its practicality and demand become the other things to factor in. So the way that dies are coded right now, and the way it interacts with the glamour plate, leads me to believe the hard answer to this question is just straight up no, based on the way things are currently made. Dies are just not made to work that way. So the fact that they're in our inventory now and that they need to be consumed the way they do now is something the game is not set up to do currently. Now, it's not impossible to imagine they would come up with a workaround. I mean, it's technology, and yes, while the engine is built this way, you can change certain things if you put enough effort. Do I think that they think this is an urgent enough issue to prioritize it in regards to, reworking the back end and how it's all accessed, both in the glamour plate itself and just the die system overall? I don't think so. I don't think it holds a high enough priority for them. So I'm just gonna say, do I think? I guess the question is, do you think this would be a workaround? It's certainly a change, but not really a workaround, because it would still need to be fully developed, and it wouldn't really change. And it would only change the way we have things. It wouldn't complement the way it is now. It would completely change it. So it's not even a workaround. It's just an overall change. This one doesn't have a hashtag, but they said, hi, Mr. Happy. Hope all's well. This ain't a 14 question, but want to see if you've tried out the new Final Fantasy mobile game, War of the Vision. So I actually played it in a closed beta scenario, and I was going to make a video on it. But I have one very, very particular rule when it comes to gacha games. Any mobile game that is a gacha, I should say. The gacha needs to feel good. Because if every time I participate in what is one of the primary progression systems, if I feel like I'm being scammed, I'm being ripped off, or I'm just not satisfied with the feeling of reaching into the gacha pool and pulling something out, then it's not a satisfying experience to me. Final Fantasy Record Keeper and Dissidia Opera Omnia, in my opinion, have done that better than any other mobile game that I at least have played. one big signal for me, I don't like games that have more than one gacha in them. Meaning, like, a great example prior to War of the Visions would be Dragalia Lost, which had Worm Prints, the units, and one other thing I don't remember. They fixed Worm Prints, so now there's only 2, but I really don't like that. There's pity systems where, like, if you fail to, like, get the thing you want after so many efforts, so many tries, whether it be real money or earned currency, that they give you the option to obtain it. And normally it's like just a massive heap of the resources, but at least you know you could get it at the end of the day. It allows you to stock up on resources instead of feeling like you're just burning through them every new event that actually comes up. So War of the Visions plays pretty well, but it's an instant no for me as soon as I saw that gacha had like 3 different things in it. There's no way, and especially with like no pity system at all. I won't do it. I just won't do it. Next question, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. I heard that this tier is a lot more exhausting than the previous ones, from what FC friends and folks are saying online. What's your opinion? Exhausting? I don't know if exhausting is the right word. Maybe Shiva, but 5, 6, and 7? Hell no. Those aren't that much different than the way we've had them in previous tiers. What's exhausting is the Party Finder just wanting to use so many different strategies. I'd rather use a shittier strategy in the Party Finder and know everyone knows it and everyone does it than people fight over what strategy is the best. Because at the Party Finder, the problem is there's sometimes where it's like something is super practical and actually easier than the strategy people have gotten used to, but people fight it because they don't want to learn it, they don't want to know it, they just want to clear it quick. And you know what? In the Party Finder, I get that, but it's such a conflict, man, between wanting to do something that should theoretically be easier for everybody and improve performance versus doing what everyone's comfortable with. Bro, just whatever the party leader wants to do, I just want people to do it. Okay, you know what? That's the bottom line. I've said it a million times in the past couple months. If a Party Finder leader says, we're doing this, don't bitch and moan, just do that. You had the choice not to join the Party Finder. You had a choice to, and then you made the choice to join it. So at that point, shut your mouth, do the damn mechanic. If you don't know it, learn it. Now you know it forever. No more complaining. That's exhausting. But the actual fights, the only thing that's exhausting is Light Rampant on Shiva, because you will wipe to it a million times before you finally finish that fight. So maybe that alone makes it more exhausting for people. Maybe people pugging are telling you that it's more exhausting, but the actual encounters, I wouldn't say are more exhausting. All right, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Also, my internet is bonkers right now. My internet's gone out like 4 or 5 times this week. I had some issues with it before everyone was in shelter-in-place quarantine that I was working on getting fixed, and now it's tough to take care of anything, so I just kind of have to, grit my teeth and hope that it works on any given day, because it's been a pain in the ass as of late. So let's see. I hope that it comes back by the time I have to scroll down to get more questions. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Howdy haps. How are you in this mess? Hoping my internet works. That's about it. Especially with 7 Remake coming this week and streaming it. I didn't know that you were colorblind. How can you handle how this game works with colors? Have you ever thought about looking for ways to help it? So there's no way to help my colorblindness. It's such a unique form of colorblindness that I could fix one particular part of it and still have every other part in place. Like, I'm not just red-green. I'm not just like specific colors. It's entire shades and hues. Blues can look like purples, yellows can look like greens, which can look like reds, which can look like browns, and yellows can be hard to see on white paper. It's such a vast array of problems that I have that there's no way to fix it. Early Final Fantasy XIV was intolerable as someone who was colorblind. And I'm talking about like just 2.0. 2.1, they made some adjustments, worked really well, but for people who weren't colorblind, apparently it was like too much in one direction. They pulled it back and they met in the middle, and now it's pretty great. There's only a few AoEs that I ever have trouble seeing. They've done things like add physical attributes to things that are also separated by color, so you can identify them in more than one way. And that's kind of the key thing with being colorblind in an MMO. You need to find ways to identify things that aren't based on color. So like I'm trying to think. I think it was Neo X Death. People would call the debuffs like blue and purple or something like that, or black and purple. I don't remember. I remember people calling colors when the actual shape of the debuff is different. The shape that's in the debuff is different. So I identified them via shapes. And I have to do that with a lot of things. Like, I can't look at Judgment Nisi in the Epic of Alexander and tell based on the color of my debuff which one I have, because literally it looks like there's only 2 different colors to me. So I had to actually read alpha, beta, gamma, delta on the debuffs themselves in order to see who my partner was. And it made it way harder for me. I think that's why I don't actually think Wormhole was like the mechanic I was the most afraid of. It was Nisi, but it's because my perception of it was way different than most other people's. I think the game actually does a really good job at it nowadays. They slip up occasionally and they're usually quick to fix it. But I don't think it's that hard to play this game, even without the colorblind options, as a colorblind person right now. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. What's your hello to you too, by the way. What's your opinion on dungeons? The overall difficulty in those tend to be an absolute joke. People want them to be as fast as possible for spammable tomes, but I always like myself want them to be a bit more complex and fun. Considering how we only get 1 per patch now, they haven't gotten better, but sort of flatlined to a point where making me fall asleep. What's your 2 cents? I don't care about dungeons. I don't really care if they improve. They've clearly set a standard for what they're meant to do in Final Fantasy XIV, and wanting to change that, it just won't happen. Now, wanting them to maybe add modification options so that when you do them, you can change them up, but you wouldn't be able to do that in a roulette. You'd have to make pre-made parties for it, which means you'd be losing the roulette bonus, which has all sorts of other concerns. It could also do something where, you know, the dungeons like got way higher stats, but what do you do for a reward structure for that? You can't realistically offer item level that's that much higher than that's what's available. There's no side grades that you could possibly add as a reward. So what do you do? Mounts, minions? Honestly, the only way you could do that is if you did it like Eureka, and you added gear that only has certain effects inside of these special dungeons. And yeah, that's something that's feasible to do, but I don't think it's going to happen. You know, dungeons, I run them once. I love the aesthetic, the music. Sometimes the bosses are fairly interesting. And I love watching people do the first boss of, what's the name of the dungeons? I can't even remember the names of the dungeons because they don't do them. The 5.1 dungeon, the friggin' broom boss. Yeah, I love watching people do the broom boss because people can't perceive it at all. And I love watching melees just get slapped around by brooms. People doing the last boss of Anidar, the most recent one, they they just don't know to stand on like the puddles because they didn't do Sastasha to stand on the water flows, or not being able to like perceive how the hands are going to move or how much time they have. Like, I love watching those little things like that because a lot of people aren't like expert players, so these things actually provide adequate experiences for them, which is why people actually do get mad when we only have 1 dungeon a patch. It's not even about like variety of dungeon, it's just straight up like that's the content I do the most, and they're reducing the amount of it. Those people exist. I've experienced them quite a bit because they tell me I'm an asshole when I say I don't care about dungeons and that dungeons are pointless, and stop like being upset that we're losing numbers of dungeons when the dungeons are what they are now. They're just a functional like A to B mechanic. Like, I'm here to get tomes and I'm done. So maybe glamour, I guess that's like 8.5, I suppose. So yeah, it's whatever. I have no perception of it because I get my challenging content out of Savage Ultimate and the occasional solo or random other piece of content that they release, like BA or the higher floors of the Deep Dungeons, which we won't be getting a new one, so I'm curious what they'll do in place of Deep Dungeon in this expansion, or if we'll just get more Baldessian Arsenal equivalents, and if that will satiate my needs. Alright, and this is the redone outro. There were a few more questions that I could have answered, but I didn't really have good answers for them. There was a couple of story-related ones, Final Fantasy XIV-related ones. There was a handful, a bunch of comments on some of last week's answers. One that said not to diss pineapple pizza, and to that I say, you know, it disses itself, really. So that's what else can I really say? There's nothing else to say on that topic. So that's gonna be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. If you have a comment, if you have a question for next week's episode, be sure to put it in the comment section of the video below. Thank you again to our sponsors, both Steel Series and all of our patrons, and our patrons of Darkness, Khuja Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. And thank you to all of you for tuning in and enjoying this. Enjoy your Final Fantasy VII Remake, stay spoiler free, and enjoy the hell out of it. With that, I will see you all in the next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Until then, take care.